London Reels. Way better idea. Sponsored by Xbrain. What's the first thing you do when you get into work in the morning? Check your email, right? Wrong. I took a tip from Tim Ferriss, former guest on London Reel, and I'm now following the information diet. You see, when someone sends you a message on Facebook, email, or even Twitter, it's their agenda for your time. And what you need to focus on is your agenda. So I stay off the email and the messaging systems until 12 noon every day. And instead, I write that proposal that I need to, I make that phone call, or worst case, I compose an email, but I do it offline. That way, you can get the most done with your day and not just continually be reactive to those who are demanding your time. That's today's Way Better Idea, brought to you by the folks at Xbrain. If you want to check out their Way Better protein powder, it's grass-fed, it's free range. You can get 15% off with the customer code LondonReal. Click on the link below or go to xbrain.co.uk. Peace! You're a very busy woman with a lot of these different activities you're working on. And so I'm wondering, why do you get involved with LEAP? And you're a director of LEAP. And if you can tell people, what is LEAP?
Thank you. Law Enforcement Against Prohibition is this global organisation. It's only been going for just over a decade. It's a global organisation of serving and former legal professionals who protest the failed war on drugs. They say that prohibition is what causes many of the problems that we associate with drug use. So we have lawyers and police officers and some former spooks and DEA people, prison governors, judges, even some drug czars, including the former EU drug czar, who now say, from our professional expertise and experience, the war on drugs has failed, and this is why. And it can be looking at the problems caused at the local community level, with the breakdown of trust between policing and policed, or it can be on a more global level. So, for example, the fact that the global drug trade is worth up to $500 billion per year, and all that goes into the hands of not just organised crime and violent gangsters, but also funds over half the designated terrorist groups on the planet. Yeah. So you think about it. We fight the war on drugs. That creates prohibition. That drives this huge trade. I think it's the third biggest trade in the whole world, underground and into the hands of these people, including our terrorist enemies. And then on the other hand, we're waging the war on terror. So we have this sort of cycle of
two-front war.
Yeah, exactly.
For no reason.
It's a win-win for the military security complex.
Yeah,
It's great for all, prisons. It's great for law enforcement. It's great for the military. It's great for everything like that. So it's big business.
And what does LEAP do? Are you trying to make these things aware? Do you have certain initiatives that you're working on? Is it big in the States, or is it more difficult in the States?
Well, it started in the States.
Okay.
Because, of course, the US is the fountainhead of the war on drugs. I mean, they're the sort of the turd in the pipe when it comes to reforming the UN conventions.
I haven't heard that one before. That's a good one.
So yes, it was founded 11 years ago by 5 police officers there, and it's now grown exponentially. So we have a presence in 120 countries globally. We've got over 100,000 supporters. What we aim to do is educate primarily and just say, look, we're not some free the weed group who wants to have a toke. From our professional expertise, we say the war on drugs has failed, and here's why. And here's why we need to have a rethink and an adult debate about what the options are. Because the UN Convention started 50 years ago, and the aim of creating a drug-free world has egregiously failed. I mean, there are more drugs now than there ever were. They're stronger, they're cheaper. There are more users. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah. So this goes to Einstein's definition of insanity. Something doesn't work. You try doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. You're not going to get it. And that's what we've seen with this. And it's reduced whole regions of the world to narco states, violence and things like Latin America.
Mexico.
Mexico's huge.
It's just...
Yeah, so, they estimate that since they ramped the war on drugs up there 7 years ago, over 70,000 people have died in the crossfire, sometimes, incredibly brutally. Or you look at whole swathes of North Africa, which are the major transit zone of cocaine, and whole countries have descended into narco states. There's violence everywhere. Mali, Guinea-Bissau, even Libya, since Gaddafi was ousted, 90% increase in the heroin trade. Most of it is controlled by the local militias and insurgent groups and, the al-Qaeda militants in Libya. Or Afghanistan, where since we've intervened, the acreage under the poppy growth has now doubled in most areas and trebled in some. So the trade there is worth $500 million per year, and all that goes into the hands of our terrorist enemies, the Taliban. And then we're supposed to be fighting them. Yeah, $500 million can buy a lot of weapons and Kalashnikovs and things. So the sheer stupidity and madness of this on a global scale, I find absolutely gobsmacking. And that is not, before you even get down to the local harm, the local communities, the damage done to individual lives, the criminalisation of people who just want to take something, who might have a health problem, but then are thrown in prison. And the violence on our local streets and the fact that dealers can get out to our children much more easily because the whole thing is unregulated. Every which way you look at it, it's a mess. So I've got involved in this, and it might seem like an odd fit with some of the other stuff I work on, but I do see a link. The whole war on concepts, isn't it, really? Or war on nouns, where you've got the war on terror, the war on drugs, the war on the internet, and now the war on whistleblowers. And they all feed off each other, and they're all used, particularly the war on drugs, was like a prototype for the war on terror, where it was used to intervene across the world, it was used to destabilise countries, it was used to shred our civil liberties and invade our homes. Now we have the war on terror we can use for that, so we don't need the war on drugs so much.
This week on London Real, best-selling author and Pulitzer Prize winner, Jared Diamond.
Why on earth did you and your dopey society invent metal and we didn't? Instead he asked, why is it that you white people have all the cargo and we black people don't? They're all people. They're all dealing with the same universal human problems that you and I deal with. That question, why the difference in technology, was in the back of my mind and led to my book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. Historians didn't discuss the question because it was too big a question.
It's a matter of life or death for us to understand why these past societies succeeded or failed.
On Sunday, London Real presents Jared Diamond, Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Once you've been to New Guinea, the rest of the world is boring.